welcome to the Panny Tech Blog podcast. This is our 6612 podcast, and we're happy to have everybody listening. For those of you that are tuning in a second time, I want to thank you. We are fairly new at this, so just bear with us as we work the kinks out. But again, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us again for our next podcast. I guess our topic of the day is going to be, or this particular podcast, is going to be benefits of single sign-on, as well as we're going to talk about identity management solutions, authentication issues, passing credentials, and all the security problems that go along with that. So I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. One of the things that I guess I've been dealing with over the course of my career as a security person is always the single sign-on, SSO, as we'll refer to it from here on out. I know the benefits of it. We had blogged about it a little bit, but I'm not sure if anybody had read it. But again, one of the benefits of it is it reduces phishing issues, reduces password issues due to different username password combinations, reducing time spent re-entering passwords, lockout issues. Sometimes even depending on how it's set up, can reduce. Even as goes far as to passwords need to be changed over and over again, stuff like that. It supports a lot of different methods, OSs such as Linux, Mac, Windows. It's a big cost saver. A lot of companies have gone to it, especially with this economy. They've gone to it with the reducing IT costs due to as a help desk, I did some time on a help desk, and I can tell you get people all the time. Oh, I changed my password yesterday. I changed it Friday, and now it's Monday morning, and I can't get in. It's an urgent call on a Monday, and the single sign-on thing does help with that because it allows people, especially to change their own password. I know I just did a recent install Forefront Identity Manager. And one of the reasons why the company put it in was they wanted to reduce single sign-on. They want to be able to use the single sign-on system to be able to get people to go ahead and change their own passwords. One of the other things as well with Forefront Identity Management is pass credentials from system to system, which is, I guess, a good thing if you're running a multi-platform. I know I deal with a lot of customers on a regular basis that are dealing with either the situation of they have Linux, Windows, Mac, and the poor users, especially if it's an education facility, they have young kids, they have to deal with memorizing 3 different passwords. So it can be a cost saver, it can be a time saver, it can be a huge time saver for. Specifically for IT, I know especially IT departments nowadays are running leaner and meaner, as a lot of people have said. So it really does help them out. Especially when you're dealing with these little odds and ends applications that you have to deal with patrons like public libraries and places like that. A lot of these public and state entities, they don't want to have a guy sitting there at the beginning of the school year or the beginning of a change in budget plan and having to go ahead and re-input everybody into the patron program. It can be a real cost saver, especially with the open source support nowadays. But the centralized, there are some benefits to it. The centralized reporting is a big issue. You can tell who logged into what, which is incredible for a security standpoint. It really is. You could, that type of logging is just fantastic. But, again, security on all levels, whether it's, entry, exit, or just access to systems, without inconvenience of re-entering a prompt could be an issue. Somebody gets up, walks away from their computer, forgets to, lock it. Now all of a sudden, because of single sign-on, the person doesn't have to re-enter a password, and they can go wherever they want on a system. Especially in a place like a casino where they're dealing with, tote systems and stuff like that. It could be a very, very big issue. But like I said, the negatives which we've talked about, provides access to many resources once the user is authenticated, and that's the other thing too. Let's talk about access and let's talk about something just as simple as, somebody gives their password out for some reason due to social engineering or something like that. Now you're dealing with a situation now where, somebody has access to all the systems because, it's one password for everything. They're there are some other, other issues with that as well. And, let's go to the maintenance side of things, that, a lot of places don't have money for redundant servers, so that single sign-on server goes down, and, now nobody can log into anything, I mean, it happens, and the other thing is too, especially, we haven't really touched on this, but, a lot of people, nowadays, especially with the reduction of, budget, especially IT budget, IT is overhead, we cost the company money more than we make it, except if you're dealing in, our case, a consulting company, but, people want to name their stuff so they can, so they don't have to go look up IP addresses, look up names, so you'll get a company that'll name their server, IDM1 or, ILM1. Well, now if a hacker starts looking around, he's going to see, and especially if it's named IDM or ILM, he's going to know whether it's Novell, Windows, or, if it's Open ILM, well, no, Linux box. So, it's one of those things, those types of systems are always going to be the first ones to get hit. So, you have security, patching, all that stuff is going to be really important. And there are other types of other issues as well with a single sign-on, especially when let's talk about identity management. For instance, first of all, you have ILM. For those of you who don't know, you have ILM, which is the Windows version of identity management, and you have IDM, which is a Novell's version. Which, not a huge Novell person, but I have worked with that product a little bit in the past, and I have to say it is quite superior to ILM. But we're not going to go there right now. One of the one of the issues with that, especially as far as the database goes, I know some particular systems, ILM, the SA passwords are sitting in text files so that ILM can pick them up, authenticate, and do the database work and then log out. It's a problem. You have a text file, especially if it's unencrypted, sitting on a database server that predominantly could somebody scoops it up. You could have somebody seriously how they got your SA password. So, I mean that's one of the issues with identity management, whether it be on the Windows side as well as the Novell side. Also, the other problem that I've also encountered with identity management is most identity management doesn't do direct queries into databases. You have to drop the data into a folder, and then the SQL server or SQL admin, whoever, will run a job that scoops up that text file or scoops up that CSV or whatever, and puts it into the database. Well, now you have a file with important information and important data sitting on a server, and it's a very big problem, especially when you're dealing in a situation where predominantly, especially I know in certain in Linux and Windows as well. I know I'm not sure about IDM, but the Windows share has to be available. And somebody makes that share a generic share rather than limiting it by username, rather than limiting it by the the IDM or the ILM or the authentication service account. Somebody could predominantly go in and scoop it and get quite valuable information of yours. So that's an issue right there. The other thing that always concerns me. When we're on the topic of service accounts, let's go back to that for a minute. Service accounts, a lot of places I know, especially, set service accounts to never change. They never expire. They never have to change their passwords. They never get locked out. And I understand the whole purpose of a service account, but I think that's one thing, especially in the Windows world, the Mac world, I know especially. It's an issue to have a service account sitting out there that if it gets hacked, the password's never going to get changed, and it's an issue. So I think that's one thing that I've always been a big gripe of mine with Windows, is that particular issue with the service accounts. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got my issues with Novell as well. That admin, you have an admin account for one admin account that does everything. I mean, I know the same thing with Windows. You have the administrator account, but with Novell, there's that admin account seems to be something that you need to have open. Whereas a lot of times on Windows systems, people generally lock out the admin. On Novell, you really can't do that. You can't disable the administrator account. So that's something that is a bit of a problem. One of the other things we had kind of touched a little bit on, but is the passing of credentials from OS to OS. Especially on the Mac side. I know Macs are pretty secure. I mean, I know myself, my company machine is a Mac, and I mean they're good products. But when you're dealing in a situation where the keychain is something that always freaks me out. If the keychain gets compromised, somebody has all your passwords. So again, it's something that Apple does. I think it's a part of single sign-on, but it can be a problem, especially when you're passing credentials. And the other thing is, too, how are credentials passed from Windows to Mac, Mac to Linux, Linux to Windows, vice versa. Are they passed encrypted? Are they passed in clear text? That's something people have to look into. They don't really think about, but it is very important. Especially dealing with somebody, especially on certain networks that don't have identity, that don't do user access control (UAC). Somebody sitting out there on a rogue access point, or somebody sitting out there just sniffing at the network. They're going to pick up your unencrypted traffic. I know it's a big issue, especially in Microsoft load balancing, especially with the way it does load balancing. It does send out data, and if encryption isn't turned on, you could be, the way load balancing is done with the broadcast, you could be broadcasting important information to every VLAN and every network. So it's something that should be looked at. One of the other things that I've seen over the years too is, and kind of scary, is I've seen a lot of people, they decrypt, AD, to go to, Open Directory, or to go to Novell, or to go to Linux, and I've seen it before done. I don't particularly recommend it. It's a huge security vulnerability to have, especially an identity management system or a single sign-on system, decrypting all your passwords. And I've seen it done, where a person will change their password, and there's a program, and it doesn't have to be identity management. I've seen programs out there that have absolutely no problem sitting there, and they decrypt programs this way. Your admins have password access and all that type of stuff, and it's an issue, because it's all it takes is one person to get a hold of that data, or one admin to get upset, or something like that, and then you have passwords to everything, especially if you're dealing with a place that doesn't change. Their password policy is 90 days, something like that. Somebody can grab a password, and they got 90 days to use it to their advantage to compromise other systems to get in. So it is something that is very important. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. One of the other things too, over on the topic of single sign-on, I see, one of the things I see a lot is talking about single sign-on, since it's irrelevant. I see people, especially their Facebook account, their Twitter account, their Skype account, their LinkedIn account. Everything is one password, and I know it makes it easy for people, and people say all the time, well, I don't care if they get my email password. Well, right, but if they get your email password, they can go to your bank, ask for a reset, they email the reset instructions to your email, and then they can reset your password to your bank information. So I don't think people, especially on the user level, really see how incredibly dangerous that particular situation is with using one password for everything, especially with social media nowadays. I think it's going to become more and more of an issue, especially as identity theft and all that rises. I think it's going to be really important that people don't have one password for everything, or they should have at least one password for their email, one password for the banking, and then one password for all their all their other games and social media and all that stuff they do. And one of the things I think that's going to get especially more and more relevant as time goes on is mobile security, as far as passwords on that type of stuff. I think that's going to become more and more relevant as time goes on. I know Apple's done a great job, especially when it comes to signing in on the iPhone. I know the sandbox and all that type of stuff has made it much more secure, and it's something that I really give them credit for. I was actually very impressed by it, but it's it's an issue that people having one